Okay, I have the live stream up and running. Let's make sure everything's working. And go and check the map. So we are going to fly from Idaho County and go and fly west out of Idaho County to the Salmon River and follow its winding route through the hills and through the many valleys and hills down towards Challis. So it's about just under 200 miles, but we've got a fairly fast aeroplane. So we'll be doing 250 knots most of the way, I imagine. So we'll see how we get on. And just before we do get going, I'm going to give away the game now. I have a Raspberry Pi set up on a second computer alongside. I'm just booting it up to go and open up the live stream. Sorry, not the live stream, the procedures. So I can see the procedure for starting up the 850. I can probably do it by following my way around the cockpit anyway, but it pays to do it properly sometimes so you don't get any nasty surprises with the aeroplane later on. Okay, so I'm just opening up a web browser on the Raspberry Pi. Won't be long. Open up the procedures and go for the 850. Okay, we're ready to go. So we're going to jump inside the airplane. I'll do this without the head tracking for the moment, just to get things sorted out. So I've already got the controls sorted out, so they're all good. I've got the throttle and it's got the reverse in the right place. I've got the propeller control. We'll do mixture by hand because it's a turboprop, so you just put it to high idle once you're in flight and jobs are good. Okay, so control 5, we lift the crash lever up. Generator goes to main. Source goes to BAT. Oxygen goes to on. And then come back down to the instrument panel and we turn the radio master to on or up. So radio master is... oh my word. Here it is, hiding away down in the bottom corner. So fuel selector goes to auto while we're here. Then go back overhead and go and put the nav lights on. And we can configure the GPS and the flight plan at this point. So with a little bit of luck, I don't think this actually loads the flight plan in from the sim, does it? So no, we're not going to have a flight plan directly on here.
Okay.
Whoa, that's loud. Let's go and check the volume levels with the sim. Okay, it's turned down a little bit. So yeah, we'll just use this for visual reference along the way and skip across to look at the general plan on LittleNavMap and on Navigraph, which will show broadly the same thing on the way down the route. Whoa! So we'll see it on the map on here. It will look slightly different because this is obviously the real map from the TDS GTN 750. Okay, so we're not putting anything into there, so we don't have to worry about it. So we look down in the cockpit, and propeller goes to max RPM. Then over here we go and put the auxiliary boost pump to up or auto. Then look overhead, ignition goes to auto, starter to on, and then we can start monitoring down in the cockpit. So we're looking for the NG to get to 13%, and then we can go to low idle. So that's 10%. So that can get advanced now to low idle. Keep an eye on the inter-turbine temperature. That's looking good. We can clear those warnings. Then at 50% NG, which we've just gone through, we can go and turn the starter back to off. And the fuel condition can then come up to high idle. But we'll leave it on low idle for the moment because we're doing other things around the cockpit. We just have to remember to get it up to high idle before we actually get on our way. So back overhead, we've got the gyros. So we have to go and turn them all on. And then back down in the cockpit, we put the inertial separator to on, and the EFIS master to on or up. So that's up here. And we go and select a cruise altitude. We're only going to be flying at a few thousand feet today. So if I set this to, well, let's calibrate the altimeter first. If I set this to higher than we're going to be going, then otherwise it will keep beeping at us all day long. So we're going to be hand flying this. We've done the barometric pressure, so we want to go and set the bleed to auto, so that's over here. Air conditioning to on. Cabin climb rate, so the arrow has to go to up. I don't think we need to worry about it, to be honest. The knob under the cabin altitude, arrow to up. So here's the knob. So yeah, you can put it in the, so it's pointing vaguely upwards. Okay, so put the transponder onto standby. It's already on standby, good to know. And then the autopilot at the bottom left, where are we looking? Control 2. Okay, I've got a slightly different layout of instruments here. We want to go and put this onto on. Weather radar can come on, it's already on. I guess this has got some memory of where the switches were previously. Should we just go and check, because this has got the damage control. Yeah, I'm going to repair the engine. Obviously it was 2% damaged last time we used it, so that's fine. Okay, so we are ready to taxi, so we can go and put the taxi lights on. We can get rid of the warning. So it's warning us now about the pitos, the stall heater, and the inertial separator. So if we look down here, we've got the pitos here. But we don't actually want them on yet, because otherwise we'll cook the engine. Or cook the probes. Parking brakes on, auxiliary boost pump is on, but that's all fine. Okay. Let's have a look around outside. So which way are we departing from Idaho County? We've got a crosswind 11 knots, so we'll just depart and turn right and go for runway 26. Okay. Should we go and advance this to high? So half the reason for tonight's flight is because I'm actually going away for a week, so this is going to be my last flight for the next week really, and I just wanted to go and have a fly. So there's no great scheme behind it. We're going to have a fly along a picturesque part of the US. I actually spotted that Idaho was really nicely modelled during a recent flight. So flaps to takeoff position. We're going to be taking off very shortly, so let's go and get the pitot on. The transponder can probably come on. I'm just playing with the power here. I'm not quite sure in this aircraft how much power you need to maintain taxi speed. So okay, we were going to go and put the transponder on, weren't we? And go weaving off into the grass while we're doing it. Okay, landing lights and strobes. Strobes on. Landing lights on. Inertial separators on. Parking brakes on. Auxiliary boost pump is on. Watching the aircraft accelerate and rotate at 80 knots, and we're in the air. Gear up. Just overcorrected slightly into that crosswind, but we're fine. Actually, no, the crosswind's pushing us across, isn't it? It's the other way round. So flaps up. And inertial separator can come off. Boost pump can go to auto. So if we have a look at the map now and zoom out, so we're going to head slightly to our left into this valley, and this will be the beginning of our route. Turbulence is kicking us around a little bit, isn't it? Sorting the trim out on the way towards the valley. Obviously we're picking speed up. So propellers in the green, torque is on the high end but not too bad. Let's pull it back a little bit. There we go, it's back into the green. Slow the propeller down a bit more. Okay, and start enjoying the scenery. If we're not being thrown around by the wind. So we've got live weather. There's not many clouds around, but it is quite windy, so these hills are kicking us around with the wind funneling through the valleys.
Terrain ahead.
I might have to turn the inhibitor on for that to shut it up. It could drive us slightly mad unless we just fly at a nice altitude all the way. I guess if you fly in the valley, you don't get to see what's above it, do you? So let's have a look at our route. Zoom out a bit, make sure this isn't going to change our view. Yeah, so we are doubling back on ourselves. So we're going off down this way. So this is just a bit of a fun flight really, because quite often I'm learning things in the simulator and either showing people an aeroplane that's come out or explaining how something works that's quite complicated, and I don't really get much chance to just go fly. So today's all about just doing that and just going for a fly. So are there any things we've missed on following takeoff? So we've done the inertial separator. We can turn the landing lights off, can't we? We're not commercial traffic. Taxi light can come off because the gear's up and it's automatically switched off anyway. We don't go above 250 knots below 10,000 feet. So that's all we really need to worry about. We're not going to be going above 18,000. We're in the US, so the barometric pressure can stay where it is. If you see me looking sharply left, I'm looking at the live stream chat to see if anybody said anything that I need to respond to. So it should take about an hour, the whole flight. This really is being thrown around by the hills, isn't it? Or the wind over the hills. So let's go and engage autopilot. Where is it? I've forgotten how this airplane works. It's terrible, isn't it? So here's the master button up here then. So it's on, but it wasn't actually doing anything. So it's doing roll, hold, yeah, roll and pitch, hold. Which is actually, that's fine. That's all we really need today. It's just so I can take my hand off the joystick and let the aeroplane continue in a straight line. So Philippe says, your tutorial videos are awesome. I'm a newbie on flight simulation and you've helped a lot. To be honest, all I'm doing is sharing things that I'm learning. I'm not a professional pilot, so yeah, I've realized where I find things interesting can be of use to others. So I tend to be, because I work as a software developer, I tend to be interested in how things work. So the fascination for me is all these systems and knobs and buttons and dials and switches. So the great thing about the Black Square aircraft, of course, is that it all makes sense. So it's very predictable in that if you switch something on or off, then it reacts elsewhere and the engine reacts as you would expect it to. So you can see we're going to be following the Salmon River, which is marked on the map really nicely on the GTN 750. Or, sorry, TDS, GTN, is it GTNXI? I can never remember the names of all these things. Have I ever tried scenery development? No. I've deliberately stayed away from building aeroplanes and scenery. I think it's a bit of a slippery slope for me, because there's no doubt I would be able to do it, but I don't underestimate the amount of effort required. And I think quite a lot of the time when people are critical about aeroplanes people have made, I don't think they actually realise how difficult it is. Which plane is this? This is the TBM 850 from Black Square. So it's kind of the analog predecessor of the TBM that comes with the simulator. So you get a lot more to do and a lot more to fiddle with in the cockpit and a lot more to play with, which makes it great fun in my book. Okay, so we're making our way down towards this turn at Riggins. If the aeroplane doesn't put itself into the ground. So is that this place down here we can see just coming, or is that a bit further on? Notice I said earlier about this beeping every time we get near the altitude, so I'm going to move the target altitude out of range of it, so it won't keep beeping at us. So yeah, the TBM 850 is really nicely modelled. So if I try to crane round like an owl using the tracking, you can see just everything fits together really nicely. All the models, also all the buttons and the levers and switches are all modelled really nicely. So same goes for all of the dials. See, while I'm looking down here, I can at least see the artificial horizon, so I can, or attitude indicator, so I can see where we're going. We could have a play with some radio navigation along the way. I'll have a look in a moment. Have we got any VOR stations in the neighbourhood? Probably not. We're out in the middle of nowhere. No. Is the quick answer to that. Where is the closest one then? There's a NDB over there. Yeah, I need to keep an eye on the aeroplane. Unless I put the autopilot on to do pitch and roll, it's going to keep doing that to us. So just put the autopilot back on for roll and pitch. So, I don't think there are any beacons nearby. There's another NDB over there. It's quite a long way out, and they don't tend to be very long range. So it's all going to be visual all the way then. So much for playing with radios. Turn the autopilot back off. So you can see this is where the river snakes to the left. So if we turn right gently here, and then we can see out of the left window where the turn is. Okay, so we're going to scoot across. So this is the Salmon River. So autopilot back on for a moment. So if we go and zoom right in, you can see it weaves through these hills. And So you got Riggins Hot Springs coming up, the Spring Bar Campground. It carries on and on. French Creek, Salmon River is obviously labelled here and there. There's lots of campgrounds along the river, so it's going to be interesting to see some of them as we go whistling past. So can I find the altitude warning switch to turn it off? It might be inside the system somewhere. EFIS, AHRS.
Terrain ahead. Terrain ahead.
It's doing it now, look. Inhibit tours. Now, will it turn it off completely? Because if it will, we can go down into the canyon. Yeah, we appear to have inhibited tours, which is good. So we've got a question on the live stream. Do I use any sort of fuel planning? Not only on the big jets. If I'm doing a group flight, like a proper flight with ATC, I tend to put the right amount of fuel in, and then you're looking for, you know, plus a margin, and you're doing all the calculations ahead of time. If you use Simbrief, it works out for you. So you can put the correct amount of block fuel in, and then obviously you monitor it during the flight. And the only reason you ever get into any problems is if anything out of the ordinary happens during the flight. So yeah, say if you get put into a hold somewhere, or you get diverted and you're burning through a lot of fuel, that or you had a strong headwind that you weren't accounting for example, and you were cutting it fine for you know, because you got the fuel calculation wrong maybe, then that suddenly interests me about you end up making yourself a spreadsheet or something, or scribbling some maths down on a bit of paper, looking at your fuel flow and burn rate, and trying to figure out if you're going to be okay or not, or if you need to divert and go for a fuel stop somewhere. But usually, if you've done it right, you have plenty of spare capacity. The general aviation's a bit different. You don't necessarily put just the amount in for the journey, do you? You fill the airplane up as much as you can afford to, and have massive extra capacity on purpose. I guess that's just to prevent accidents, really. Otherwise you get people, if they're trying to cut it too fine, you're going to get a whole different class of accident being much more common, or mishap. Okay, let's just make sure we're on the right track here. Yes, we are. So we follow the river. There will be a fork in the river soon. I think we go right at it. Yes, we do. We really are being pitched around, aren't we? I used to have FS Realistic installed, but since having head tracking I've not bothered with it. I'm wondering whether I ought to go and put it in again, because in weather like this it would make it much more turbulent for us, wouldn't it? But I will admit I really liked FS Realistic as it was before they started adding needless extras to it. When it just did the job of simulating the physics, you know, effect on your first person view in the cockpit, it was brilliant. But then they started adding lots of extras that nobody wanted. In my mind it was absolutely perfect as it was originally. Someone's asking me to reinstall FS Realistic. I don't think I even have it downloaded at the moment. I don't really want to go and walk through that while I'm flying. I know it only reads SimConnect, so it should run without killing the simulator, but it is good fun. I have a funny story to tell you about going away on holiday. So a few months back, my other half turned around and said, could we book, a week away somewhere just to go and have a break? So I went and looked at the map, and we didn't want to go too far to make it easier, just to get there. So we just throw some stuff in the car and have half a day driving maybe. So I looked on the map, and I looked at Wales, which is only a few hours away, and looked at areas of Wales we'd never been, and said, okay, let's go. And I basically threw a dart, figuratively speaking, at the map and picked out Anglesey, which is a small island off the northwest of Wales. And then I zoomed in on Anglesey and found a small cottage. I searched into Google Maps cottages to hire, and it came up with little pins all over the map, and I zoomed in on one and found one that was really nice and reasonable price and booked it. And then I zoomed out on the map. So we're actually going to a place called Holy Island, which is off the edge of Anglesey. It's like an island off the edge of the island of Anglesey. So I zoomed out on the map and then realised we're about 3 or 4 miles away from the flight path into RAF Valley, which is where all the RAF fast jet fighter training happens. So I think my other half, she doesn't realise how loud it's going to be. I don't think that, 8, 9 in the morning, you're going to have hawks coming in at 300 knots. But somebody at work today said, oh yeah, but on the upside you'll get some cracking photographs of the hawks coming in on approach, or departing, depending which way the wind is. And I said, yeah. My other half doesn't like aeroplanes very much. She's terrified of flying. Whereas I'm the one who sits, obviously these days, I think it's common for most of us that fly simulators. Whenever I go on holiday and have to sit on an Airbus or a Boeing, I'm sat there listening and figuring out what phase of the flight they're in, where the flaps are, and watching everything going on and listening. It's like stepping behind the curtain, isn't it, in The Wizard of Oz? Once you know how aeroplanes work and what the procedures are, it kind of takes all the magic away from it. Okay, so we're getting up to this fork where we turn right. I presume it's just over the edge of that valley there. Oh no, I got it wrong, look. We're turning left first. Or this is the way I've got it sketched in. That would have been a way to cut back. Okay. So we're going left here, sorry. That's why it pays to check the map. Yeah, so we follow the river out along. But who knew about all this wilderness in Idaho? It's great, isn't it? There's hundreds of miles of it. Obviously, people who live in Idaho will be rolling their eyes right now and saying, well, duh. Okay, you can see the river down here. Some of these campgrounds that we were talking about. So I guess the next story for the evening, after I've done this flight, I'm going into town with my eldest daughter, who's in her early 20s now. She's a huge fan of horror movies. I'm not so much, but I keep promising to take her to a horror movie. And the local cinema is showing, or sometimes shows, old movies. I think they call them throwback movies. And Texas Chainsaw Massacre is on tonight. So we have tickets. I think I'm going to hide behind a cushion or something with a drink. Maybe more than one drink. She will probably find it enormously funny. I'll be horrified. Just reading the livestream story about the F-111s. So I need to have a camera in my hand at all times then if we're anywhere near approach to valley. To be honest, I don't know yet. I'm not sure if we'll end up in Snowdonia, up in the hills to the east. We'll probably be exploring Anglesey most of the time. So Anglesey's off to the west of Valley. But yeah, I have no idea what their routes are for training. It could be that they come zooming round the cliffs. I'd be surprised if they do, because there are protected bird colonies on Anglesey. So the jets probably stay well clear. I think it's one of the places where puffins still exist in great numbers. Okay, let's just check the map. Okay, we're coming up to that right turn.
$500.
I wonder if you can stop the announcement of altitudes as well. Of course, we're getting the messages popping up from the... Oh, it's just a license. That's fine. So, there is an airfield to our left, and there's one directly ahead of us over the top of this hill. Should we go and scoot over there and have a look? How long is the runway? Is it touch and goable? 1,400 feet. We can have a go at touch and go, can't we? So, Mallard Creek Ranch. Which way's the wind? I didn't spot that. So, it's going to be a crosswind. Okay, that's fine. Is that it down there in the hollow? You'd expect it to be up on the hill, wouldn't you? To make it less precarious. But maybe not. Surely that's not it down there. I think it might be. Oh my word. So if you go for a touch and go down there, how do you climb out? That's slightly death-defying, isn't it? You have to go for an immediate left turn. Well, we'll have a go and we'll see how we get on. Cutting the power back. Should we side slip this in? Whoa! Look at the nose drawing circles. It's great, isn't it? We're going to have problems keeping slow enough. But there's this hill in the way, both ends. So we're going to skim the trees, both ends. We really should have come in from the side, shouldn't we? Instead of straight lining it. This is a dangerous airfield. There's no way we're stopping here. No. This aeroplane is not suited to this. Or we'd have to come in on a specialist approach to do it. Oh, trees! Thankfully the trees don't scratch the paintwork in Flight Sim. It is not picking up speed, is it? What is going on? Okay, we're okay, just. Just edging the airspeed back up. Of course, we're already at 6,000 feet, which partially explains that. Okay, I think that's enough excitement. We'll explain the green marks all the way down the fuselage when we get back. We just helped the forestry service clear some of the boughs. So the flaps were travelling, they were just very slow in travelling. We didn't get any warnings though, did we? About anything. There was the beeping, but that was because I had the undercarriage up and the flaps still down on the initial climb out. But that was just trying to get some airspeed. But then while the flaps were travelling, I guess they just took time to travel. Okay, let's see where we are. So, follow the river. Or follow this valley. Yeah, you'd need a much smaller, lighter, more, greater thrust weight ratio aircraft to go into that little runway. The TBM 850 is fast in a straight line, but it's a big heavy lump. It's not really suited to a short field. Should we have a look outside, see if there's any bits of twigs hanging on? Because there's turbulence throwing us around. Any bigger airfields along the way that we could go explore, maybe? Not without a significant detour. Should we descend into the bottom of the valley? There's more to see down there, isn't there? Go and follow the river at low level, or lowish level. Trouble is, we'll start getting 500-foot warnings all the time, won't we? You can be fooled by the horizon level once you're in the hills, so the attitude indicator becomes far more important. See, we had a gust of wind then underneath the wing. I was almost full right aileron then as the aeroplane was trying to roll left. So whatever the wind was doing coming over the edge of these hills, it tried to turn the aeroplane over. Let's go and descend down towards the river and see how annoying the warnings get.
Don't sink. Don't sink. Don't sink. Don't sink. Don't sink. Don't sink.
500.
Don't sink. Don't sink. Don't sink.
Whoa, that turbulence is wicked. The wind is obviously funneling along here. You can see I'm being pulled in various directions. I don't want to get too close to a hillside in case we get pulled into it by the wind.
$500. $500.
Of course, I forgot the huge party piece of the Black Square aircraft is they've got an accurately modelled KNS-80 radio, which lets you create virtual VOR stations.
500.
So as long as you've got a fairly strong signal to a VOR some distance away, you can project its position to somewhere else, so you can make yourself guidance into an airstrip, for example. Or through a valley. Obviously you need to do some fairly accurate measurements on a map, and you need to have, you know, a line of sight to the radio mast, so in a valley it's not going to work. Or depending on where the mast is, but yeah, the KNS-80 is fantastic fun. I've done some videos on it in the past. Okay, so we go left here, then up to the next dogleg in the valley. Look at the quality of the rendering of the hills. It's just crazy, isn't it? Should I scoot ourselves forward in the cockpit a little bit so we can see more sideways easily? These scree fields are amazing, aren't they? The wind is whistling through these valleys. Look at that. The wing just suddenly threw itself in the air. We are being buffeted quite heavily, so I'm having to react quite strongly from time to time. So there's the river. Okay, so we just carry on following it, basically. This is what I was saying, you need the attitude indicator at this point, look, because we can't see any horizon anywhere. So it pays to have it. The aeroplane's bucking around like a buckaroo horse. Or rodeo horse, I should say. Okay, so left at the next turn. Or the next cliff, I should say. It's very cool, isn't it? Amazing scenery. It's a bit frightening sometimes, but... the aeroplane is protesting against the elements. Every time it dives or lifts its nose, it just makes me laugh. It's like how to get some respect for nature, isn't it? To see an aeroplane being thrown around like a rag doll. Again, I'm holding about 50% right stick there. The aeroplane was trying to be turned over left by the wind. It's doing it again now. So we've got a tailwind at the moment though, so it's obviously barreling down the valley behind us and carrying us along with it. So we'll just keep an eye on the map on the river here. I think when we get to this fork in the river, we stay on the near tributary. So if we have a quick look, yeah, it's not real obvious there. We'll know when we get there. It's a bit just out of shot, I think. The river's still down there. So there's a comment on the live stream. How do I feel about Flight Sim 24? I feel like I might need to upgrade. But we've got until the end of the year to save the pennies up, so a good few months to save up. So yeah, then that's exactly what I'll be doing. Putting money aside, possibly for a 4090 graphics card. And it will, obviously it's going to take several months to save that sort of money up. I may have to replace the case, I don't know. As far as I understand, 4090s are considerably bigger than 3080s, but we'll see. I may have to upgrade the RAM as well. That said, I only run the sim in 1080p because that's the resolution I send out to YouTube. I could run at 4K. I can't see the point. I used to run in 4K. All it really caused is the graphics card to have to do extra work to downscale to 1080p anyway, unless I send out to 4K at YouTube. But I think there's so few people watching in 4K, it's not really worth it. Okay, so this is going to become more difficult to follow the river now. But I will admit, I'm not too keen on the gaming elements of 24 that I've heard about so far. That they hold absolutely no interest for me, I will happily admit. I've never done any of the missions or the organised activities in the simulator. I've only ever just grabbed an aeroplane, taken it to an airfield and gone off flying it, you know, for my own curiosity. Obviously I've done group flights, but that's different. That's with other people. I've not done any of the missions or any of the challenges. I think I did one of the tutorial flights when I first got the sim to see what was in them, where it took you on a very long, very boring circuit of an airfield. And I never did another challenge ever again. So just so everybody knows, this, in terms of performance and what you're seeing, you see it less smooth than I do. For some reason, the streaming to YouTube knocks frames out all over the place. And that's nothing to do with, it must be something to do with OBS. I know some of the professional streamers have dedicated hardware to split the HDMI feed, and they have a separate machine for streaming, you know, that just handles taking the video feed and the sound feed and takes it out, you know, via dedicated hardware to do it. I don't. I'm just using the one computer to do all the jobs at once. But beyond that, I've got a 3080 RTX. It's capped at 30 frames a second on purpose, because I see no point of going faster than that. And the sim is set to all generic settings. It's got ultra level on the scenery. So the graphic settings I've just set, everything is on factory default and just on ultra. I've never fiddled with the, well actually I tell a lie, a long time ago I fiddled with the NVIDIA control panel and got kind of seduced into doing it by people talking about doing it, and it made absolutely no difference, so I ended up going back to factory defaults. So I quite often get the question, am I running shaders or anything, or the Google Scenery texture hack or anything like that? No. I'm running Flight Sim out of the box. Okay, so here comes the fork in the the river. And there is an airfield down here. We can do a touch and go here. So we have gone slightly off track to where I was planning on going, but that's a happy accident in a way because it gives us this airfield to go visit. I have thought once or twice about going and buying X-Plane 12 just to have a play with it, because I used to own I still own X-Plane 11. Haven't had it installed since Flight Sim came out. And any time I look at an X-Plane 12 video, yes, it's nice and smooth, but then you suddenly realise they're having to install scenery for just anywhere they fly, and they're having to tinker with it and fiddle with it, and oh hello, we got a sim freeze. I think the freezes in the sim have something to do with the USB controller. I'm not sure. Because not everybody gets them, so it's definitely a hardware issue. Because after the sim freezes, the controllers move around, which would imply it's almost like the USB devices have been reset. So maybe it is my multi-USB adapter is damaged in some way. It's quite interesting. I often see the argument that people claim it's unfair to compare Flight Sim with X-Plane. I don't think really fairness comes into it, because nobody said it was a fair fight to begin with. Microsoft bankrolled Flight Simulator for many years in development, and they've obviously used it internally as a proving ground for cloud services at scale, because they needed something to solve the hardware, the technical problems, to actually run things at scale with the real audience throwing lots of data around. So it's probably been invaluable for them to get real world data that they can then base the technology on for business customers. So I think primarily behind the scenes at Microsoft, the services used by Asobo to deliver the data have been a proving ground for Microsoft to validate, their techniques and methods of doing that. Because all the things that Asobo are doing, you can purchase as services from Azure and do them yourself. The pulling in of the tiles, the pulling in of the scenery data, it's just web services at the end of the day. But then having colossal amounts of data being served to lots of people at the same time, it's the same problem that the likes of Netflix or Disney or Amazon have solved for their video streaming services. Okay, let's get the speed off. Go downwind a little. We're going to have a crosswind landing, but that's fine. Just waiting for the speed to come off a little bit. So get the nose up. So gear can come down. That gives us some drag. Almost into flaps range. I left the landing lights on earlier, didn't I? Yeah.
500.
Sink.
Look at that crosswind. So what we could do, I'm doing this a bit late, but we're going to side slip it in. So we're going to point the nose down the runway and drop the left wing.
Don't sink. Don't sink.
And we should be able to traverse. Yeah, we're a bit late doing it. Nope. We're coming out of here. Look at that wind! That suddenly got stronger. We'll go round and have another go, because this is good fun. That's amazing. Gear back up. We need some speed. That's some proper wind, isn't it? The windsocks were horizontal. We need to get the side slip sorted out way earlier. Well, it may even be too strong a crosswind to do that. So back out to those hills, come back in, get it straightened up, get the crosswind corrected, and then start using the approach angle, sorry, the roll angle to traverse left or right. But it may be that the wind was too strong to do that. We may just have to accept crabbing at a crazy angle. We may need to come in a bit quicker than normal as well. So, yeah, we're far too high this time. I'm going to circle around and keep going.
Don't sink. Don't sink. Don't sink. Sink.
I'm rushing it. I'm going to go further out and come in and do it properly. Okay. So this time we get more time. To sort this out. So we're side slipping.
Don't sink. Don't sink. 500. Don't sink. Don't sink.
500.
Trouble is I don't have rudder pedals, so it's very difficult for me to maintain the same slip angle while moving the stick around. Yeah, that wind is really whistling across the airfield, look. This happened last time, didn't it? Gonna get one wheel down. That's the most dangerous landing I think I've ever seen. I don't know what strength the wind was, but this was So because it was a crosswind, we can just turn around and take off the same direction we were going. I almost put the power down and climbed back out again, but we got one wheel down. I thought, no, let's just go for it. Yeah, look at that. Look at that windsock. Brilliant. Obviously, because we came out across the flat plain and there's nothing in the way of the wind to stop it doing that. So full propeller, or max RPM on the propeller. First stage of flaps. See if we can hold it in a straight line on the runway. Having to fight it all the way. Gear up. Flaps up. That is some pretty horrendous crosswind. Brilliant. Good fun. Good practice as well, just, you know, for the academic exercise of thinking, how do you deal with this? How do we get away with it? And that's what simulators are for. To throw yourself into situations that you wouldn't even dream of trying in the real world, but the simulator lets you find out how you might get on. So Tim Miller said, now try that in a tail dragger. No thanks. Can you imagine it? It would just weathercock straight into the wind, wouldn't it? As soon as you wouldn't be able to get enough purchase on the floor with the tail wheel to stop it from doing it. Hang on a second. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Just had someone come into the room asking me questions about something. So, I'll be eating at the cinema later. The cinema in town actually delivers food to the seats if you want it, so we'll see how we get on. Okay, so we go across this quite Elk Bend, it's called, down here. I love this kind of scenery in the simulator. Should we go lower level? Although it's quite windy, so we might get thrown around.
Don't sink. Don't sink.
These rolling hills are great fun to fly over. Yeah, it's going to be a bit death-defying in this wind. So just how fast was that wind, just out of interest? So we've got 20 knots where we are here. I think it was a good deal faster than that over the airfield. Shall we advance time and get the evening light? They call it the golden hour, isn't it? Where's the sun going to be? Excuse me. Okay, so how far have we got to go? About 20 miles to Challis. So if we zoom out, what was the code for the airport? KLLJ. So we go to back out of here and do a direct to. How do we do a direct to in this thing? Nearest airport. KLLJ. We have to do that from the map screen. Oh, it's activated, isn't it? Of course it is. There we go. So Steve James is saying about uninstalling AccuSeason. I don't have AccuSeason. This is absolutely stock flight sim scenery. No, I've had it ever since Flight Sim 2020 came out. So I think it might be to do with the USB, either the USB controller on the motherboard or the USB adapter that allows multiple, well, you know, the hub, sorry, the USB hub that I use. Okay, so we've got some irrigation going on down here. $15 miles to run, or just under. So let's put the roll and pitch hold on, see how it handles it. What we could do, I guess, is pull the, whoops, let's turn the head tracking off for a moment so we can play with the cockpit. So spin the heading bug around. Let's have a little play with the autopilot just as we are getting near. So put this on heading mode, please, and then we're at 7,500 feet at the moment. So let's go for 8,000 feet at a vertical speed of oh, I can never remember how this works. I've used so many different variations of this instrument. You go vertical speed, then you push this, and there we go. 500. and that will take us gently up to 8,000 feet. There it goes. It's trying to go for 500 feet and doing a poor job of it, but then the wind's throwing us around. And there's the airfield out in front of us. So let's have a look on the ground. The wind on the ground is 250 degrees, 16 knots, gusting 22. So it's a similar story. It's a crosswind again, and it's coming off these hills, so it's going to be turbulent. Do we go straight for 17? Maybe we do. So let's come off autopilot. Let's get the speed under control. Head tracking on. Landing lights are already on. So there's the airfield. Taxi lights on as well. That should light up when the undercarriage is locked out. Or maybe it only does it when there's weight on wheels. So let's let it crab this time and see. Obviously we'll have to be ready to correct it when we touch the ground.
Sink rate, don't sink, don't sink, don't sink, sink rate.
Okay, so we got white and red on the VASI lights. So we're on broadly the right approach angle.
Five
500.
sink rate, don't sink, sink rate.
Now we're too low. Whoa. That turbulence was great, wasn't it? So we're about 10 or 15 degrees off axis. Oh my word. So let's try the technique of letting the airplane fall, and we'll turn the nose at the last moment. That was a bit easier, wasn't it? Obviously we floated quite a long way, but that's just not knowing the aeroplane. So we've arrived at Challis. Very cool. Could have done without the wind, but beggars can't be choosers. Okay. I now can't see anything in the dark. That was clever of me, wasn't it? Okay, very cool. So, as I said at the start of the video, I am not going to be around for the next week. So that was the end for me for the next week or so. But hopefully by the time I come back, there'll be a couple of new airplanes out. I know the MD-11 is coming in the simulator. I know there's a few others that are due for release that have been talked about recently. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm really looking forward to seeing the MD-11. There's a TriStar in development, isn't there, as well? I'm not sure who was making that, but that'll be good fun to look at as well. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. Hope you've enjoyed that. So that was a fly along the Salmon River through Idaho. And we had a few adventures along the way and saw some pretty serious crosswinds. Yeah, I'll see you again soon. Take care.